Once upon a time, there was a country called Yugoslavia. How many of you in this audience have heard of Yugoslavia? Oh, okay. So, when I first told this story, Mitzi was telling me, like, you might be a bit too old for some people. They might not have heard of Yugoslavia. Okay. So, basically, just to have a short recap, Yugoslavia was a country consisting of 6 different states: Macedonia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, Slovenia, Croatia, which most of you would know from Game of Thrones as King's Landing, and Serbia, where I was born. But I never identified as Serbian, and to this day I think of my country as of origin as Yugoslavia. And growing up in a country that was torn apart by war in the 90s and broke apart makes it a bit difficult, because it's almost like you're a child of divorce and one of your parents left when you were 1.5 and you're just left there in a foreign country. My parents moved to Australia when I was 1.5, and you're left there with this impression of a country that no longer exists from your parents. It's almost like having this cultural phantom limb, because they keep telling you about this country, Yugoslavia, that is no longer there. And I don't really know how acutely my parents felt that cultural phantom limb. But I do know that when my dad got his Australian citizenship, he was 100% Australian. No doubt about it. And his Australianism was the kind of performative Australianism, the whole beer and pies, Sheila's, blokes, shrimp on the barbie kind of Australianism. And it's a common thing for any Australian as a reflex to just say g'day. You walk into a shop, you just say to the shop owner, oh, g'day. Something like that. And it doesn't mean anything. It's not actually good day. It doesn't mean hello. You're just sort of identifying that you are in the building, they're in the building. You both acknowledge that you're both living in that space and time. But my dad, when he would say it very differently. He wouldn't say g'day. He would say something like g'day. As if he had to think first before saying that. You know, and that idea of you know, being caught between two worlds followed me throughout my life. And that was illustrated particularly once every year. So in Balkan households, Yugoslavia being a part of the Balkans, it's very common for houses to open up once a year and for your parents to invite their friends, and they come over and they eat and drink and eat and drink some more at a party. And this party is known as a slava. Commonly, a slava celebrates a patron saint of the household. So whether your patron saint is Saint Nicholas, Sveti Nikola, Saint Anthony, Saint Peter, Sveti Petar. So it isn't always the case, but it's a very common thing. Our patron saint was a little off kilter. Our patron saint was Sveti Avnoj. And Avnoj is an acronym that stands for the Anti-Fascist Council for the National Liberation of Yugoslavia. Essentially, this organization was born in 1945, and it was the birthplace of Yugoslavia, and it was very fiercely communist. So every year, we'd have guests come up to our front door, and usually this progressed over time. Every year they became more communist in their outfits. It became this sort of almost blackface of communism. I don't know how you describe it. It's like the Hitler Youth, but in Navy. So they'd come up to the front door and they'd stand at attention, give the communist salute, and they'd say, "Death to fascism, freedom to the people." And they'd take a spoonful of this wheat cake, and the wheat cake was shaped in a 5-pointed star, and it had a big red candle in the middle, because you can't get too communist. And then they'd come into our house and they'd eat and drink and eat and drink. And we'd sing songs from the old country, and in the case of my mum, dance on tables. For the children, for me, it was a bit of a different experience. We served, can I get you another drink? Let me take your plate. That's all right. Are you good? You're good for food? But we also served as a barometer for how well our families had integrated in Australia. So it'd be comments like, oh, my Ivana, she's just finished her PhD in architecture at the University of New South Wales. Mm-hmm. And then it'd be another conversation about, oh yeah, well, my Charlotte, he's a criminal defence lawyer. And he's working for legal aid now, defending the Aboriginals. So there was this sort of concept of us being as Australian as possible. But then on the other side of these parties, you would be judged. And your families could potentially lose some face if you didn't quite know all of the words to the most tragic war songs that came out in the 90s. The fist-bumping, rock songs from the 80s when Yugoslavia was full pelt. Or if you forgot the right moves to the dances. So there was this conflict within us where it was a message of be as Australian as possible, but don't forget that the blood that courses in your veins is Yugoslavian. And it wasn't just our parents that let us know that we didn't quite belong. When I was in primary school, one of my friends called me a dirty Serb, which was really weird because I didn't identify as a Serb, and my mum is borderline OCD about cleanliness, and I inherited a lot of that. So it was really odd coming to this country and then discovering that even in the sort of peak white male privileged stratosphere, that there's a pecking order. There's essentially a caste system. You've got, oh, you're of English descent. You've got Scottish blood in you. Oh, you're Irish, Welsh. You've got German in you, French, Italian, Greek, dirty Serb. It also came up when I was dating. So if I was dating an Australian woman, there would be this weird moment when her parents would meet my parents, and they would inadvertently ask my parents to repeat themselves. Even though they'd been living in the country for as long as I'd been alive, pretty much, and their accents weren't that thick. It would happen when they would come to our house, and the nature of conversation at the dinner table was really boisterous, but there would be this sort of fluttering of oh my gosh, heavens, what are you guys talking about? And it just was this weird Australian sensibility about not being passionate about any one subject. And it came up as well, and it still does to this day, every time I would meet someone new, and my name would stick out like a sore thumb. So it'd be, oh, Pavle, Pavle, Puddles, Pavlova, Pablo Picasso, Pablo Escobar, Pav. All of these names were wrong. And my dad, who wouldn't let telemarketers off the hook without them pronouncing his name right, B-O-J-A-N, Boyan, he never understood why I never corrected these people. In Australian culture, if you stick out like a nail, you will get hammered. And so my name, the very first thing that gave me an instance of personhood, became barely a whisper. Pavle. I made one of the most consequential decisions of my life in 2015 when I moved to a small island nation in the South Pacific called Samoa. And some of you may know Samoa from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's a very prominent and large Samoan. And that was probably the stupidest idea for someone wanting to integrate and to belong to a particular culture. Samoa is a beautiful island paradise that is staunchly monocultural. If you're a Samoan, you're a Samoan, and there's a very rigid box which describes what a Samoan is. And a white European heritage person definitely does not belong in that box. I earned another name in Samoa, which is very similar to the Khmer Barang. It's Palangi, essentially meaning the same thing, foreigner. But instead of Samoa becoming this other instance of pseudo-racism and other people telling me what I was and what I wasn't, it became the first time that I could see outside of my own ego. And I began noticing the similarities in people, irrespective of their skin color, their religion, their cultural background. They had the same flaws, the same problems, the same anxieties. They dressed them up in different names, but essentially all of it was the same. Even the beautiful parts of people, you could replicate, irrespective of nationhood. Samoa became the first time in my life where I discovered that you don't need to be born into a community. You can create a community, whether that is through staying connected with people overseas, through your phone, for example, or whether it's through creating a new community through shared passions like art, music, storytelling. I still live with that duality and that conflict of not quite belonging. But I think I am getting better at it the more I travel and the more I discover about other people. So I'd like to thank particularly Mitzi for creating the spark that lit this little community. And I'd like to thank you all for listening. Cheers.